Hey, we are live. Hey, everybody. We're going to be talking about fear. We're going to be talking about overcoming fear, hopefully. We're going to talk about analysis paralysis. There sure is a lot of doom and gloom in the world today. And I'm going to try to help you by using my psychology and social work background to figure out how you can manage your psychology as you move forward in the investing world today. So, hey, everybody, welcome. My name is Chris Schweigel. I am founder and CEO of Chris Connects. We are a real estate investing company. Right now, today, what we're going to be talking about is the fear that's in the world. There sure is a lot of doom and gloom about inflation. There's a recession. We're either in it or we have been in it or we're about to hit it, depending on what the heck kind of metric or person you're talking to. But it certainly seems like this is a time where a lot of people are putting their pencils down. People are waiting on the sidelines. People are kind of freaking out a little bit, wondering what to do with investing. And this isn't going to be about what to do with your investment dollars. I'm not going to be your financial advisor. I'm going to be a little bit of your emotional advisor. So we're going to talk about what happens when our bodies and our brains experience doom and gloom and how we can get back on the right track. How we can develop our brain and our bodies to have grit, to have resiliency, to continue thinking and moving forward even when we're not really able to with fear. So, the first thing that we're going to talk about is analysis paralysis. I think this is kind of a hodgepodge term that most people in the world would know. Analysis paralysis just meaning where you overstudy something to the point of not doing anything. A lot of people do this when they're first going to get involved with investing, specifically in real estate investing, because there's a lot to do, right? There's the mortgage paperwork to figure out. There's figuring out your market, your sub-market. Who's on my team? How will I know if I found the right tenant? What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if I lose money? Where's the money going to come from for the down payment? There's a whole lot of analysis paralysis to figure out, a lot of things to figure out. So analysis paralysis certainly creeps in there when we're trying to consider all of the different things that we need to know. So naturally, people overstudy because they want to learn everything before they get started. And there's naturally some resistance there. So resistance is a psychology term generally attributed to Miller and Rolnick and their studies that have developed into the applied science of motivational interviewing. So resistance just means I don't want to move. They use the analogy of a swamp a lot. So if you live in a swamp, that's usually crappy. Most people, other than, Shrek and Fiona, and maybe Donkey, like living in a swamp. Most people don't like living in a swamp. But if it's your swamp, you know it. You're comfortable with it. If you make a change, who knows? Things could get better, but our brains tend to think things could get worse. So we as humans tend not to change. We resist change. That's called resistance. So we're going to be talking about how to break through some of that resistance in a few minutes here. Right now, I just want you to be aware of the fact that if we're going to make any sort of change, whether that's positive or negative in our lives, starting a new diet, moving where we live, start dating someone new, stop dating someone, all of that is resistance. And we all don't want to do any sort of change because we're pretty comfortable in our swamp. And during that time, how do you get through resistance? How do you start figuring out what to do? Well, there's a lot of just fundamentals of psychology here that tells us ways that we can calm our body and calm our brain so that we can get ourselves back to thinking. So there's a lot of calming techniques like meditation that you could do. You could do yoga. You could exercise and run. Sweat is like nature's greatest antidepressant and nature's greatest anti-anxiety medication. If you can exercise and sweat, if you can get out in nature, if you can have good, intimate relationships with people who you trust and you can be around, that's a great way to break through resistance. Talk to people who have been there, done that before. There's kind of two ways that we can use positive self-talk, which is our brains talking to ourselves. We are coaching ourselves through how to get through resistance. There's some self-talk that we can do. There's pretty much two blueprints here. One, reminding yourself you've done it before, and reminding yourself that other people have done this before. So if you're going to do something new, like let's say you're going to get into real estate investing, you're going to get your first rental property like purchased and all that kind of stuff. You may think to yourself, I've done this before, but that doesn't really apply. So that self-talk doesn't apply to you. Instead, you may want to say something like, I've done hard things before. I have created new things. I've done stuff that has never been done before. I'm pretty good at solving problems. You may want to say stuff like that to yourself to try to battle that resistance a little bit. The second thing you can do is say something like, other people have done this before. And is that true? Absolutely. There's a ton of people out there who have purchased rental properties before. In fact, I've got a course out there if you want. I didn't intend to plug it right there, but absolutely, if you want a guide, I'm happy to help you. That's scrolling along the bottom right there. But there's a lot of things that other people have done that I haven't done that I, talk to myself about all the time. Things like I want to run a 10K. I've never done that before, but other people have. So I can remind myself that I'm not alone in this journey. And so there's a lot of ways that we can battle resistance, from calming our bodies to doing some sort of self-talk, getting outside in nature, sweating, talking to people who have been there before, or even talking to people who we know and support us. Because what happens when we hear all this doom and gloom physiologically, meaning what happens in our body and our brain, is we start to feel some of this stuff first in our amygdala. And the amygdala is the part of the brain that is in charge of fight or flight or freeze. I think most people think of it as fight or flight, but about half people actually freeze. There's been a lot of studies on this that put people into these like crazy situations, and it's like, oh, danger, danger, danger. You have to figure it out now. Someone's dying. And they figure out what people do to engage their reactions. And some people run towards danger. Some people run away from danger. Some people just stay there and don't do anything. In fact, that's a category where most of the people do. They just kind of stay there, which is probably why recessions happen, because there's doom and gloom, and then there's the fight, flight, and freeze reaction in our amygdalas, and most people freeze. That's not necessarily the best way to do this, because what we're doing then is we are listening to the parts of our brain that don't think. When our amygdala is engaged, blood flows away from our frontal cortex right here, this big spot here. See, you can tell I've been using mine a lot. That's why I burned off all the hairs there, because I just used it so much at a young age that, the hairs just couldn't even stick around. So what happens is our amygdala says, oh my goodness, fight, flight, freeze. We need to protect ourselves here. So then instinctively, blood rushes from our frontal cortex, the area that makes decisions, thinks, has probabilities, decides what we're doing in life, the mature part of us that separates humans from all other animals. That part of the brain essentially shuts down because blood flows away from it, and it flows to our medulla and our brainstem. Our medulla is the part of our body that helps us react to things really quickly, and it helps us make very big, drastic, sudden decisions with very little information. And then it lets the brainstem know, hey, we're ready to rock, because the brainstem is in charge of all of our bodily movements and things like that. And so it's a letting the brainstem know, hey, man, get ready to run, get ready to fight, or get ready to crawl and worry. Have you ever noticed that a lot of times when you worry, it actually does a toll on your body, because we're sitting here like this because all of the blood is moving away from our brains and it's moving into our limbs. It's moving into our arms and legs, getting us ready to survive and fight at all costs. It was an awesome tool to have thousands of years ago, not necessarily needed right now. And unfortunately, that part of our brains gets triggered quite often, especially with news, especially with, news of, violence, especially with TV shows that have to do with criminal minds or nefarious actions. We get worried about other people. When we hear sirens, when we hear a sudden loud noise, that activates our brain stems, that activates our what they call reptilian parts of our brain, meaning reptiles have this stuff. If you think about an alligator doesn't think, it just starts chomping or runs away. That's typically what happens in humans too, of course, to a lesser degree, right? But if our reptilian parts of our brain are active quite often, and we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode quite often because of doom and gloom, because of news, because of worry of finances, because not knowing what to do in inflationary periods during a recession, that really does a number on our bodies and our brains. A lot of people experience adverse health effects because of recessions. And that sounds like they're not really interacting, but those two topics are very closely related, because our money and our emotions pretty much go hand in hand. So my hope with this video is I can coach you guys on how to relax parts of the brain that want to stay activated during doom and gloom, but you want them relaxed. So remember what I touched on before. Do some breathing, do some meditation, write down stuff that you're grateful for in a gratitude journal. Get out there and exercise, sweat, do all the things you have to do. Be in nature, do some self-talk. Talk to people who have been there, done that, or people who support you unconditionally. That gets blood flowing back into your frontal cortex so you can start making some sound decisions instead of just making really drastic, dramatic, big decisions. It's kind of like those Snickers commercials. You know those Snickers commercials where someone gets really hangry and they can't decide what to do, and they're like, well, who took all my Snickers? Something like that. That's kind of like what our brain does actually when we hear a lot of doom and gloom. So I'm hoping that this is helpful for you guys to figure out how to calm your body and get your brain back working for you. Again, most of the time what we can do is re-engage our brain, right? So we have to activate our physiological response first. We have to speak to the body before we can speak to the brain. So once we get our bodies calmed down, then we can engage in, financial education, financial literacy, all sorts of things like that. We have to get out there and learn from people who have been there, done there. And then what we got to do is we got to take some action. The number one way that you avoid analysis paralysis, the number one way that you avoid all of these struggles is take action, because then you are going to honor your body by wanting to do something, but also honor your pocketbook by making good, sound financial decisions. So get out there and, talk to people who have been there, done that. There's a lot of thought leaders who are giving great financial advice on how to navigate through inflationary periods, on how to navigate through a recession. This reminds me of when I was in grad school. what we had to do was we had to videotape ourselves doing therapy with different people, and it was excruciating. It was gut-wrenching to have to watch yourself on film or listen to yourself on a recorder make mistake after mistake after mistake. No one likes analyzing themselves, and most people are their best critics. So the way you get through that, though, is to watch those videos, to listen to the recordings. I can still vividly picture in my mind my body language during certain therapy sessions. I can hear the tone of my voice and if I agreed with the tone or disagreed with it. But that's how I learned was I got out there and did it. And this is the time now to start investing wisely. If you've wanted to get into real estate, but you have been on the sidelines because you don't know what to do, if you've been fearing making a mistake, if you've been thinking you're going to fall on your face, if you've been victim of analysis paralysis, I'm going to tell you that right now is the time to start. The market conditions are perfect right now for getting involved in real estate. Because what the heck else are you going to do? Are you going to keep your money in the bank and let inflation erode it away? Are you going to put it in stocks and they're down like 35% from last year? Bitcoin is back up a little bit, but that's still way down. I mean, real estate is the greatest place to put your money right now. It's a hedge against inflation. It is resistant to recession because people always need a tangible roof over their heads. There's no AI that's going to allow someone to be sheltered. You know, this is something that is providing real value to people. And so if you're interested in learning from someone who's been there, done that, I'd love to guide you through that. I've got a course coming out April 1st called My First Rental Property Course. You can get a promo code. Happy to give you $200 off if you go to chrisconnects.co/myfirstrental. But as you go through the process of getting your first rental, we're going to have 2 videos in that course dedicated just to education and just to mindset. Most people put way too much stock into education when really what you got to do is figure out enough, maybe read 3 or 4 books, listen to a couple podcasts so you don't lose your butt or fall victim to some sort of predatory lender, and then get out there and do it. Get out there and take action. I got to tell you that when I bought my first duplex 10 years ago, I wasn't ready. I had no clue what I was doing. I had a toolbox that I bought. I went to the hardware store and just bought one of those like toolbox kits, like a 100-piece toolbox kit. I had no clue how to use it. I got the inspection report back and the inspector said, "I don't think this is a pretty good house." The mortgage lender was saying, "I don't know if you can afford this." But I took action and I went for it. And I took action because I said in my brain I was going to. Sure, it wasn't the greatest decision ever made. But what the heck is the greatest decision ever made? We all make a bunch of calculated risks in our lives. That's what life is all about, taking calculated risks. And this is not the time to be sitting on the sidelines while doom and gloom overcomes your body. It's time for us to build our grit, to build our resilience, and to build our community so that we can be on the other side of this recession looking better than ever. I hope that this is helpful for you guys. More and more people have been reaching out to me about, leadership coaching throughout, tough times, through managing psychology and managing ourselves through tough times. And so might be doing some more videos about this particular topic. Let me know if this is helpful or not. Let me know if we should stay here with, topics like this about how we can better understand ourselves and handle ourselves through tough times. Or if you want to hear about something else, please let me know. I'm at chrisconnects.co. Until then, See you next time. Bye.